On the frontier, hesitation was a death sentence. And the Texas Rangers made sure they never served it to themselves. Between 1870 and 90s, these weapons turned the frontier into a graveyard. Each one more ruthless than the last. And in this video, we'll count them down, from the close-range killers to the ultimate symbol of justice. Stick around, because number one will shock you. Number 7, the double-barrel messenger. You grip the twin tubes of judgment and suddenly the saloon goes quiet because everyone knows what comes next. The year is 1874 and Texas is crawling back from Reconstruction's ashes like a wounded animal learning to hunt again. The frontier towns are powder kegs wrapped in whiskey and wrapped in rage, where disputes are settled with lead and luck. Captain Perry's Company D needs something for camp guards and close quarters work. Something that doesn't ask questions twice, doesn't negotiate, and doesn't leave room for second chances. This wasn't about precision shooting or fancy marksmanship medals. This was about authority incarnate, democracy delivered through twin barrels of death. 2 triggers, 2 chances to end a conversation permanently before it became a problem that followed you home. Load it with buckshot, and you're holding 9 .32 caliber balls per barrel, 18 pieces of lead that spread like the wrath of an Old Testament god. At 20 feet, it could stop a charging horse and the man riding it. At 10 feet, it could stop anything breathing, walking, or thinking about causing trouble. But range was its mortal enemy, the fatal flaw that kept it from ruling the frontier completely. Beyond 50 yards, you might as well be throwing expensive rocks at your problems. And once you pulled both triggers in anger, you became a man with an expensive club, frantically breaking open the action while your enemies closed the distance with knives, tomahawks, or their own loaded guns. Reload time was measured in heartbeats you might not have. Seconds that stretched like hours when death was riding toward you at full gallop. The double barrel didn't just clear rooms, it cleared reputations and built legends. Word would spread through cow towns faster than wildfire. Don't mess with the Rangers. They carry the twin devils that speak in thunder. It taught the frontier a simple, brutal lesson that echoed through saloons and trading posts. Some arguments end with a handshake and a drink. Others end with a shotgun and a grave. The smart money learned to tell the difference before it was too late to matter. While shotguns ruled the close quarters, the Rangers needed something for when enemies kept their distance. Number 6, the Winchester Model. 1866. You work the lever and watch 15 rounds of copper-cased death march into the magazine, like soldiers reporting for duty. Suddenly, you're not outnumbered anymore, you're just properly equipped. 1870 arrives with Texas finally free to defend itself again, and the state is arming 20 companies of mounted rangers with something revolutionary, a gun that shoots all week without asking permission. The Indian Wars are bleeding the frontier white, draining the lifeblood from settlements faster than they can be built. And single-shot rifles are getting good men killed, while their families wait for letters that will never come. 14 rounds in the magazine, ready to speak the universal language of frontier diplomacy. This brass-framed beauty could spit lead as fast as you could work that smooth lever action, as fast as your muscles could pump and your mind could aim. While your enemies were still ramming powder and ball down muzzle loaders, like their grandfathers taught them, you were laying down suppressive fire that would make a Gatling gun jealous, and a cavalry charge think twice about its life choices. The improved Henry rifle with a loading gate that actually worked, that didn't require you to point the muzzle at your own face to reload. But that .44 rimfire cartridge was more conversation than commitment, more suggestion than commandment. It would kill, sure, but it took its sweet time about the business. giving wounded enemies time to return the favor or crawl away to fight another day. And that brass frame, pretty as a new penny and twice as shiny, proved about half as durable under the hard use that frontier life demanded. Under constant stress, it stretched like taffy in August heat, turning a precision instrument into an expensive club that looked good but shot crooked. The Yellow Boy, as it came to be known, taught the Rangers that volume of fire could overcome volume of enemies, that 20 shots badly placed could be better than one shot perfectly aimed. At Riddle's Ranch, 13 Rangers with Winchesters faced down 41 Kiowa warriors in a fight that should have been a massacre, and walked away to tell the tale. Not because each shot was perfect, but because they never stopped shooting, never gave the enemy time to think or plan or coordinate their attack. The Winchester proved repeating rifles were the future, but the Rangers were about to get something that rewrote the rules entirely. If you were facing down the frontier with only one of these guns, you'd want every advantage you could get. Same here. Don't go into this channel unarmed. Hit subscribe, load up, and you'll never miss the next deadly story from the Wild West. Number 6. The Sharps 50-70 Government. You shoulder a cannon disguised as a carbine, and at 600 yards, you can reach out and touch someone's soul before they even know you're there. 1874 finds the frontier still bleeding from Indian raids that kill hundreds each year, painting the Texas plains red with settler blood and broken dreams. Major John B. Jones needs something that can drop a war horse at distances that matter before the Comanche get close enough to use those bone-handled lances that have been writing epitaphs across Texas for decades. The Sharps wasn't just a rifle. It was portable artillery you could carry in a saddle scabbard, a thunderbolt wrapped in walnut and steel, that massive 50 caliber bullet pushed by 70 grains of black powder, hit like a sledgehammer thrown by an angry giant with a personal grudge. Single shot, breech loading, and accurate enough to pick off a war chief at ranges where other rifles threw prayers instead of lead, where lesser guns gave up and went home to their mothers. Captain McNelly, the legendary ranger who made Mexican bandits wake up screaming, said it best about this iron beast. The time it takes to load the Sharps gives a man time to think about why he missed a shot that should have been sure as sunrise. One shot, that's all you got before you became a sitting duck, fumbling with cartridges while painted warriors closed the gap with blood in their eyes and vengeance in their hearts. Missed twice, McNelly said, and you had no business in his outfit because his men didn't get second chances to learn from their mistakes. But when that big 50 spoke, it spoke with the voice of inevitability itself. The psychological impact was as deadly as the physical wound. When a war chief fell from his horse 600 yards away, crashing to the earth like a fallen star, the message rang clear across the plains. Nowhere was safe from Ranger justice, no distance too far for American lead to travel. The Sharps taught the frontier that distance was a weapon too, that death could reach out from beyond the horizon and tap you on the shoulder when you least expected it. But while the Sharps could kill at distance, Rangers needed something faster when hell came calling. Number 4, the Winchester Model. 1895. You chamber a .30-06 military round in a lever-action rifle, and suddenly you're carrying the future of warfare in your hands, bridging 2 centuries of American violence with steel and gunpowder. 1895 finds the frontier closing, but new threats emerging from the smoke like phoenixes of chaos. Mexican revolutionaries, oil boom desperados, and cross-border raiders need something more than cowboy justice. They need modern solutions to modern problems. Theodore Roosevelt himself carries one of these iron prophets into the Spanish-American War, calling his 405 the medicine gun for lions. And Teddy didn't hand out compliments to firearms that couldn't earn them. Box magazine, Spitzer bullets, military cartridges that could punch through armor, dreams, and anything else that stood between a ranger and justice. This wasn't your grandfather's lever gun. This was a bridge between the Old West and the coming century, between black powder romanticism and smokeless powder reality. The 30-06 Springfield gave you rifle performance with lever-action speed, reaching out past 400 yards with the kind of authority that ended arguments before they started, that made enemies reconsider their life choices from distances that kept Rangers healthy. But complexity was its curse. The price of progress paid in broken springs and jammed actions. More moving parts meant more things to break in dust storms that could blind a man, and river crossings that could rust a rifle overnight. The box magazine was innovative but fragile, a marvel of engineering that couldn't survive the brutal arithmetic of frontier life. And those military rounds cost enough to make a Ranger think twice before taking anything less than a sure shot, turning every trigger pull into a financial decision as much as a tactical one. The Model 1895 was a glimpse of tomorrow, wrapped in yesterday's wood and steel, a preview of the wars to come, dressed in the clothing of the wars that were ending. Rangers who carried it into the 20th century were carrying the evolution of American firepower, the DNA of every military rifle that would follow. It proved that lever actions could dance with bolt actions and not miss a step, that American ingenuity could bridge any gap between what was and what could be. While the 1895 looked toward the future, there was still one lever action that owned the present. Number 3, the Winchester Model, 1894. You chamber a 30-30 cartridge and feel the future click into place with mechanical precision. Smokeless powder in a package the past could understand. Tomorrow's lethality in yesterday's familiar wrapper. 1895 sees the black powder era dying in clouds of white smoke that give away positions and choke battlefields, betraying every shooter's location to enemies with patience and good eyesight. John Browning, the wizard of American firearms, has designed something that whispers instead of screams, something that kills without announcing its presence to every hostile within 5 miles, like a church bell calling sinners to judgment. Smokeless powder changed everything about the game of frontier violence. That 30-30 cartridge flew flatter than a politician's promise, hit harder than a preacher's condemnation, and didn't betray your position with a cloud of sulfurous smoke that might as well have been a signal fire. Suddenly, Rangers could engage multiple targets without telegraphing their location after the first shot, could move and shoot like ghosts made of lead and determination. It was stealth and power, married in perfect harmony. The kind of technological marriage that changes the rules of engagement forever. But the cartridge was almost too good for its own good, creating overconfidence in men who should have known better. Rangers got drunk on its range and power, taking shots they shouldn't have taken, trusting the rifle to do what training and experience should have done. They started believing the rifle could think for them, could compensate for poor judgment with superior ballistics. And the early smokeless powder was temperamental as a prima donna, too hot a day, too cold a night, and your carefully calculated ballistics went to hell in a handbasket. The Model 1894 became the backbone of American hunting and law enforcement for the next century, outliving empires and presidents and wars that rewrote the map. Rangers carried them into the 1980s. Fathers passed them to sons like family heirlooms, and they became the sound of American justice echoing through forests and plains. More than any other rifle, it defined what a lever action should be and could become, setting the standard that every other manufacturer would chase for generations. But lever actions weren't the only revolution happening in Ranger holsters. Number 2, the Winchester Model, 1873. You load the same cartridge in your rifle and your revolver, and suddenly logistics becomes your secret weapon. The difference between victory and defeat measured in ounces of brass and lead. 1876 finds Rangers tired of carrying 2 different types of ammunition, tired of running out of rifle rounds while their sidearm ammo weighs down their saddlebags like golden anchors. Someone has finally figured out how to make a lever-action rifle and a Colt revolver speak the same language, the universal dialect of death delivered at the speed of necessity. 4440, Winchester center fire becomes the great equalizer, the ammunition that changes everything about frontier logistics. 1 cartridge, 2 weapons, infinite possibilities for survival. 15 rounds in the rifle, 6 in the revolver, and every single round interchangeable between platforms. You could fight all day with 1 ammunition supply, switching between long-range precision and close-quarters speed without missing a beat. without having to perform mental arithmetic while bullets flew past your ears. It was the kind of practical innovation that saved lives through simple efficiency. But that shared cartridge was a compromise that satisfied no one completely. A solution that created its own problems while solving others. Not quite powerful enough for the long-range work that could keep you alive, not quite fast enough for the close-quarters panic, where seconds stretched like hours. When Ranger George Lloyd accidentally chambered a .45 Colt round in his .44-40 rifle during an 1881 gunfight, he learned that convenience could become catastrophe in the time it takes to pull a trigger. He spent precious minutes under fire, field stripping his rifle with a jackknife, while warriors tried to kill him. The gun that won the West earned its name in Ranger hands, written in blood and verified by body counts. Richard King of the famous King Ranch gifted 30 Model 1873s to McNally's Rangers, and they proved their worth in blood and fire along the Rio Grande, in fights that would have been impossible with single-shot rifles. It became the template for every lever action that followed, the standard by which all others were measured for generations of American shooters. But while rifles could reach out and touch someone, Rangers needed something for when the enemy touched back. Number 1. The Colt Single Action Army. You draw the peacemaker from leather, and time slows down like honey in winter. Because this isn't just a revolver, it's the period at the end of every sentence that matters, the final word in every conversation that counts. 1873 births a frontier that needs a sidearm reliable as sunrise and deadly as nightfall, something that won't fail when failure means a shallow grave and a telegram to your widow. Rangers are facing down everything from Mexican bandits to Comanche war parties, from oil field desperados to cross-border revolutionaries, and they need something that won't let them down when the talking stops and the shooting starts in earnest. 6 shots of .45 Colt Authority wrapped in the most reliable action ever designed by human hands, for the purpose of ending human problems. Single action meant simplicity. Fewer parts to break, fewer things to go wrong when your life depended on mechanical perfection. When a misfire meant more than embarrassment. That 7.5-inch barrel gave you accuracy at distances that mattered, distances where a good shot could end a fight before it became a war. The weight of that steel frame absorbed recoil like a promise kept, like bedrock that wouldn't shift when the earth shook around it. But reloading was its Achilles heel, the fatal flaw that kept perfection just out of reach. 6 shots, then you were fumbling with cartridges, while enemies closed the distance with blood in their eyes and time on their side. No swing-out cylinder, no speed loaders, no mechanical shortcuts to salvation. Just you, your fingers, and however much time the enemy was willing to give you while you tried to stuff fresh rounds into empty chambers. Miss with all 6, and you'd better be good with that backup knife. Better hope your horse was faster than their horses. The Peacemaker didn't just arm the Texas Rangers. It became the Texas Rangers, the physical manifestation of everything they stood for. From 1873 to the 1930s, Rangers strapped on their Colts like knights donning armor, like priests putting on their collars. It was the exclamation point on every arrest warrant, the final word in every frontier argument that couldn't be settled with words. When Hollywood needed to show a hero, they put a single-action army in his hand. When Rangers needed to be Rangers, they did exactly the same thing. This wasn't just the deadliest gun in Ranger hands, it was the definition of American justice, wrapped in blue steel and worn smooth by righteous hands that knew how to use it. 7 weapons, 7 characters in the greatest frontier story ever told. Each one a choice between order and chaos, between justice and the void that waits beyond civilization's flickering campfire. The Rangers who carried them weren't just lawmen. They were the thin line between civilization and the dark, the last word in conversations that shaped a nation from sea to shining sea. Which of these iron prophets would you trust with your life on the 1880s frontier? Let us know in the comments, and remember, these weren't just tools. They were legends waiting to be born, carried by men brave enough to write history in gunpowder and lead.